for the 28th of September 2016. And we're going to launch straight into a stand-up. Anna, are you with us?
Yeah, just the usual things, issues and PR review. That's about it. And I don't have the meeting notes quite open quite yet.
That's fine. Bradley's next, but I don't think he's here. So that would be Ben, who's not here either. So Choka, Nikita.
So I did submission, pull request, comments and use as usual, and some more work on doc engine. Nothing significant apart from that. Next is Chris, but I don't think that he's here. So Colin.
Yeah, so I've been working with a client for like the past month or so I haven't been as active. But I've been trying to stay up with reviewing issues and pull requests. That's about all. Next up is Evan.
Yeah, I cut the 6.7.0 release and then did some more work on the types EP. Next is Jeremiah.
I've done a bunch of regular issue and PR review general stuff, and also together with Chris Dickinson have been working a little bit towards getting a ES modules prototype that we can play around with in Node. The next would be Tracy.
Hi, so I'm working desperately to try and get the outreachy effort onto the website so that our applicants can get a little more information about potentially working on Node core projects come December. So we'll talk about that, I think, a little bit more later, but I think that's what's most relevant here.
Which brings us to me. Nothing major, kind of taking it a little easier, hopefully, in the coming few weeks. I'm bringing in some new Microsoft contributors, hopefully, and working on scheduling a diagnostics meeting for next week. I know, sorry, today, Michael, I know you joined and we didn't have it, but we're going to schedule for next week, and hopefully now we will know if people are going to attend. Next is Michael Dawson.
Okay, so I'm just finishing off the PPC migration to the new production environment. Spent a bunch of time fixing issues that we discovered yesterday during the release that the machines weren't set up to be able to build from Node private. Some work in the ABI stable work group on Node reporting SQLite. MISC PR reviews and lands, just trying to keep up with issues, and did a review of the postmortem Node report pull request. Next is Brian White. Is Brian there?
I don't think he's here. I think he pre-filled his.
Okay, I guess Ali would be next then.
I'll just quickly read Brian's out. Brian said he worked on various performance issues, reviewed PRs, commented on code, just in case he turns up. Sorry.
Okay, so this is Ari. I have been looking at some integration build failures in the V8 builds for the LKGR build versus Node. These seem like fairly nefarious timing related issues that seem to precipitate out of some parser improvements that V8 made. So I've been neck down in these. And I was also looking at some performance runs with the new interpreter that the VA team is working on, and also working with Matthew Loring on prototyping a fast FFI. Next would be Jen, and it says no update, just observing.
Yeah, I'm just observing.
Next is me. Security releases, as always, takes a significant chunk of time to deal with. I'm supposed to be on vacation, even though I've burnt basically 3 days on these security releases. Next is Miles.
Seth is here.
Hello. So let me see what I put in here. General issue and PR review. I was helping with the security release this last week. Today I spent some time backporting inspector backlog. There's some bugs on the inspector that are in V6. So after that lands, we should be able to, in the next release, have that stuff working as expected. Been going through auditing the backlog of stuff that's not been labeled for LTS and getting stuff onto V4 that needs to be there for a future release. Been procrastinating on that TAP reporter and coming up with an outreachy mentor project.
We might jump back to Seth. Sorry, Seth, I accidentally removed you.
I don't think Seth is here.
Hey, sorry, I was just having some mic issues. I had to drop and rejoin. Quick update on our end. The async await just landed in V8, but we still need to make sure it stabilizes out and is correctly working with the debug protocol. But that's sort of exciting news from the last week. Also, I believe that a member of the language team is planning to send out a doc with a request for comments on a promise hook API. So that should help with some of the micro task queue introspection that we've been talking about. And V8 inspector work is ongoing, but going well.
Seth, just quickly, the async wrap. Sorry, sorry, I'm hearing myself, so I'm losing my train of thought. The async await stuff. What version of V8 should that be available in, even with the Harmony flag? Because we get asked that a lot.
Even with the Harmony flag. So let me double check what it actually landed under. Unless Ollie, do you know off the top of your head there?
So
I've been able
so
to run it under Harmony in 4.5. Back when Targos had like an experimental branch, so I assume it's still there.
Oh yeah, that is. I believe the flag still works for any of the recent releases. This is would be on by default that we're talking about.
Okay, so it works with flag with the recent releases, and we're probably aiming for like 4.6 or 4.7.
Yeah, I believe it's going to be 4.7. Although Ali can correct me if I'm wrong there.
Okay, it's just good to have an idea because we get asked a lot.
Sorry, I'm confused. 4.7 I'm confused with that number. 5.5 is V8 5.5 is what I thought it would be shipping with.
That's correct. Excuse me. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're up in the 5s. Okay, sorry.
I think Trevor's next.
Async hooks, that's about it. It's requiring more analysis and cleanup than I had been anticipating. Part of that's my fault, part of it's not. But where there should be more consistency, there isn't. So I'm fixing that consistency so that things are more uniform. Next is Rich.
I mentored some first-time contributors. That was fun. Woo! Hopefully the rest of their pull requests will land today. I've been doing a bunch of doc and test PRs. Well, a bunch of doc and test changes. I haven't submitted too many of those PRs yet. Working with people smarter than me to try to fix some flaky tests, so that's exciting. And some of whom are on this call right now, and ramping up a tiny bit on the build workgroup stuff, just a tiny bit, but already it's been really helpful to me on that test stuff, so that's exciting. And unless we missed anybody, that concludes the stand-up.
It does. So on the agenda today, we've only got 2 items. But just quickly, a review of last meeting, which I wasn't at. So there was talk about V8 5.4 and landing that early, which I think has gone ahead and will be in the version 7 beta builds, which are out soon. Please correct me if I'm wrong. CTC meeting scheduling which is back on the agenda today. And talking about ES modules and what points we care about the most. That's currently ongoing at TC39 this week, which is why we're without James and Bradley. And hopefully we'll get a report back on that soon. So into the meeting. We are talking about scheduling meetings, and Rich has been doing a lot of work here. So where are we at with this, Rich?
Yeah, hopefully this won't take too much time. This is more of a status report than anything else, but we initially proposed that we just dive in and start rotating meetings and see what happens. Some people, including you, I believe, Rod, were on board with that, but others expressed concern that, you know, we'd be adding some meeting times that were actually good for nobody. Nikita set up a Google Doc so that we could collect data on what times work best for people. About half of the CTC is filled in the Google Doc. Two things that I want to highlight. One is that it would appear that we might benefit from moving the current time back 1 hour, so 1 hour earlier. I don't know if that's moving it back or moving it up, but making it 1 hour earlier than it currently is. That would be a mild improvement for, I believe, Nikita, and a big improvement for Ben, and no change for anybody else who has filled in the doc so far. Just an observation. The other thing is that we can't really know what rotating times are going to work without input from 3 people. So we have sufficient input from North America. More would be great, but it'd be great to have 100%, but whatever. We have, enough people from North America to have a good idea what works for a meeting. That anyway. And then everybody in Europe has weighed in, but we don't have input from Asia and Oceania. So we don't have in Australia. We don't have. I have a little bit of informal input from Rod in email, and I haven't heard from Shieki or Sakta Priyan. So I guess I'll just email again and see what we can do. But once we have that information, we should have a pretty good idea of what might or might not work. And Anna just posted the link to Nikita's document in the chat. So if you haven't filled it out yet, you want to click on that, open another tab, and maybe do it after this meeting or something. You'll need to convert the UTC times to your local time. But other than that, woohoo! And observers are on there, as she just pointed out. So go ahead and either fill out the line that's there for you, or if there isn't one, go ahead and add one for yourself. Okay, Nikita, did I leave anything out?
I have a question. Where was the doc originally sent out? Because I didn't see an email and I don't see a link in that thread.
I had the same question. It's the first time I'm seeing this.
I think I emailed it to the CTC.
Yeah.
Yes, that's my recollection as well.
Yeah. Actually, both of you are explicitly listed as recipients, both Jeremiah and Rod.
Found it. Thank you. 8 days ago, I think.
Okay, so unless Nikita, Anna, or anyone else has something else to add to this at this point, I think that's everything. I just want to get a workable proposal that will allow us to have, at least 2 meeting times that aren't 2 hours apart or something.
I'll just say that I was really looking forward to DST changing next week and my meeting moving from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock. And if we're going back an hour, then we're going back to 6 o'clock. But that's okay. I'll suck that one up. That's fine. So I think that just requires more discussion outside of this meeting. And we can probably resolve it there. But for anyone listening and observing, please stay tuned for possible changes sometime over the next few weeks, if you've got this regularly scheduled. We'll try and announce them mainly on GitHub. The next one is this Node modules version, bumping it up from, I think we're on 4.9 at the moment. And this is, so just for anyone that doesn't have context here, node module version is it's just an integer in the binary that when you load an add-on, it does a check that your add-on is compiled against a version of Node that has the same number. And if it doesn't have the same number, it's rejected and said, well, the error is different depending on which version of Node you use. And each time we do a major version release, we break the C++ API or ABI, Application Binary Interface, we bump this number. And so what we've been doing recently since version 4 is doing it with every major version number. It has been done previously with every semver minor since way back. So we're coming up to version 7 now. We're on 4.9. We would normally, or is it 4.8? We would normally bump up. I think actually 4.8. Yeah, we're on 48 now. We would normally bump up to 49, but Electron has been they've been bumping it themselves because they keep on pulling in new versions of V8 and breaking ABI. So we're talking about jumping to 5.1. So who would like to take this, and what's the status of the discussion? Miles, maybe.
Yeah,
Miles?
I can take this because I opened the PR. So yeah, as you had mentioned, we kind of had a way in which we've been handling this in the past, but we also in the past have not been landing versions of V8 on master until, you know, we have a version cut. So we never ended up in the position we are right now where we're smoke testing or people are running master and then they're getting like they're not getting that check. Like what the node module version is like supposed to do is to stop you from accidentally using the wrong symbols. And so we're having, you know, V854 labeled as module version 48 right now. So I've submitted a pull request just to bump that on master and then to backport and to port that patch to 7.x. And then the question would be whether or not we want to do that on master. And then the second would be whether or not we want to just essentially have it so that when we do these ABI breakages that we bump the version, or if we want to actually revert this and bump it in the release commit as has been done in the past.
I'll just note that version 11 had significant ABI and API breakage throughout its life, and it stuck with the same module version. So if you're using master, then it's sort of buyer beware, I would say. But since we're going into version 7, I personally have no problem because we know what the I think we're at the point now where we know what the semver majors are, so it would seem okay, I guess, to do it.
Yeah, one problem that we're seeing happen right now that I don't know is happening in 0.11 was issues with node pre-JIP, because node pre-JIP is using the module version number to decide whether or not to build or to grab the pre-built. And so we were noticing in serial, in node serial and in node SAS, and there's one other that's escaping me at the moment, but essentially pre-JIP is going and grabbing the wrong binary and then things are exploding.
That is a good data point.
So
we might need to.
Is there any negative to bumping it now?
I don't believe there is, and as we keep on being told by various people, integers are very
Something
cheap.
would change. If something would change in between, would you have to bump it again? Meaning if people
Yes.
are relying on master now and then there's a change, we'll have to go to 52.
Yeah, well, presumably on master we're going to have to bump it again anyway because we're going to have version 8 coming out, and the negative there would be if people start shipping pre-built binaries that are targeting 51 and they're using them on master and it doesn't work, and we go to 52 and then people start shipping pre-built binaries for 52 and we don't have a stable version, we're going to have to keep on bumping. So we're just going to have to come up with a policy that if you're using master then you don't get certain guarantees. Maybe what we should do is prematurely bump it, so we go 51 now, and that's what goes into version 7, and then we bump it again so that master has diverged. So if master is 52, and then when we get to version 8, we bump to 53. So we end up skipping 2 versions, just so master's out of sync.
I wouldn't do it exactly like that because, like, we should probably see that we get some way of watching the Electron versions that they use, because they usually pull in every V8 version there is.
Yeah.
And yeah, we should just communicate that with them in some way, so that allocating the numbers is shared.
But doesn't that mean, like with what Electron's doing, doesn't that mean that just pulling random numbers out, like 45 is going to be a newer version of V8 than 46 per se, since Electron is filling those integers with newer versions of V8. Suddenly we find ourselves like, okay, well, we have to skip ahead of all theirs, but we're using an older version of V8.
So someone proposed that, and I forget who it was, but proposed that, you know, if the ABI number maps directly to V8 versions, then V8 54 should be ABI 54, 55 should be 55, and then Electron and Node don't have to pay attention to each other. They can just, you know, agree on that practice, and will always be in sync.
That doesn't
So
work
the problem
though.
with that, yeah.
So
the problem with that is that, the problem with that is that two things. One is the ABI is more than just V8, so Node can have ABI changes too. And secondly, we're moving to a VM neutral API and ABI compatible API in the future anyway, and I think that should dictate the API version going forward, and we'll have to figure out how to work that with Electron when the time comes. So, so I don't think V8 version by itself defines the ABI version that we expose.
I think what we need to just do is just have better coordination with Electron. So we just have a pool of numbers, and we both projects take from that list, and we just jump ahead. So we did have a situation with Electron earlier on in version 6 where they jumped ahead in V8, but they didn't update node module version, so people were getting breakage there. So they skipped. They did the jump, which is why we're in the situation now. So if we just say have an agreement with them, look, whenever we increment, we need a new number, we take the next one available between the two projects. That should work.
So actually, there's one thing we can do that actually will simplify life quite a bit. And I think so on master, recently in the past 1 year, we are very regular with updating V8. So whenever a new stable comes out, we pick it up on master. I think that would be a good point for us to bump as well. And that means that we are doing bumps on every significant ABI change. And that will match up with Electron.
It would also make testing those nightlies much easier. I'd really like to get to a state where people can start using nightlies for better testing.
But with the with the way this sounds, it's like Electron's pulling in these updates, and like it's been said, the ABI isn't just dependent on V8. It sounds to me like you can't reliably map any version of Node to any version of V8 whatsoever. So the fact that they're pulling from pulling from the same number pool seems totally counterproductive, because I, as a developer, would look at that and go like, oh, okay, well, that means they're kind of compatible, but at least they're going on the same change set. But from what it sounds like, if you use a version of Electron that has a latest whatever, I can't in any way rely on Node, at least like an official build of Node.
Well, it's a huge ease for Electron users to be able to use pre-built binaries that come from Node versions, and that worked for a lot of the last months, I think.
Okay, so, but in that case, they wouldn't update their module number, right?
Well, there's already people out there that are maintaining lists of what node module version maps to what. So all it is people have to keep track of these node module versions belong to pure Node, and these ones belong to a version of Electron that is skipped to a state that Node isn't. So it's just sometimes we'll line up and sometimes we won't.
Yeah, sounds complicated. Well, I mean,
yeah, the thing oh, sorry, go for it.
I was going to say, I mean, you said it's an integer, right? Why don't we just give them the negative numbers? they can increment however the crap they want, and then people can map it between the two.
Well, the other problem is that Electron actually isn't the only consumer here. We do have some conflict with NW, and they at one stage were jumping ahead as well. I don't know if they've got such a big user base, but yeah.
It just sounds like a crap tactic to need to coordinate for a release of like, oh, we're releasing on the same day. Oh crap, we accidentally took each other's numbers.
Well, I don't know if it's that complicated, and we do have fairly good relationships with them now, and we do watch each other's code base a bit, so we can just improve that situation.
Yeah, like one of the weird things that ended up happening, and this is where like the numbers are important, is they bumped to 5.1, but didn't do it in a non-ABI. They did it in an ABI breaking way. So we actually have like two different versions of a node with 5.1 out there, and they need to be moving faster to like stay tied to Chromium. I think like whatever we can do to keep the number itself simple and keep the relationship strong is a good thing. And we could just iterate if it doesn't work.
For what it's worth, I don't actually think they need to be upgrading V8. They're just using libchromium content, and I don't think they have a strict need to tie the latest version of V8 to that. I suspect they might start to get into a bit of trouble doing it so quickly. And
well, maybe that's something we can talk to them about offline.
Yeah. Okay, this sounds like a discussion that needs to go back to GitHub. Unless Miles, you think that it's urgent enough that we've got to do something now, and we don't have a resolution.
Well, the only thing I would say is the pull request has a whole bunch of look good to me's on it, especially from the CTC. I would say like Rod and Trevor, if you have any problems with it, to voice the concerns in there about bumping it to 51. But I would like to see this land either later today or tomorrow, just so we can get smoke testing running again and unbreak people on master.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
there's two distinct points here,
call.
right? So one is what to do now and what is the policy going forward. I think the former can be resolved, and I think we should be pursuing.
Okay, who wants to take the lead on defining a policy and proposing it somewhere? Ali, would you like to do that?
Sure, I can take a stab.
Ali,
maybe
I can help with that if you'd like.
This might be something to go. I know we've been overusing the LTS repo for some of these things that aren't strictly LTS, but it might be a good place to put it because we've been doing a lot of versioning stuff there. Just to start with. Okay. So then the call for this meeting then is if you have objections to the proposal in pull request number 8808, then go and voice them. Otherwise, it will be landing because there are no objections in there right now. No explicit ones that I can see anyway. Okay. Now, the next item that somebody put on here is version 7 general planning LTS discussion. I think also in there we need to have a discussion about version 0.10. Who put this one on the agenda and who'd like to take it?
I put this on. I feel like we're getting close enough to our next major and close enough to the next LTS stream that we should start probably discussing this week by week as it comes up. So we're all in the loop and can all make informed decisions on it. And sure, I mean, we can probably throw V10 in there too, since it's end of life, I believe, end of October. Is that correct? I don't remember.
Well, this is why we need to discuss it, because our LTS doc actually says the 1st of October. And that I don't think maps to the expectation that any of us have in our head. But we have communicated it out there. Apparently, there are people out there that are saying 1st of October because our docs say that. So that's a big thing we need to sort out.
We did at one point with the LTS Working Group discuss just keeping it alive the same as 0.12 till December, because that's when OpenSSL 1.0.1 is end of life and we pretty much can't support anymore, like period.
So if the doc, if our doc says October 1st, what's the downside to sticking with that?
Well, I guess the downside might be that we may have communicated in various ways. Like there's been a couple of discussions on Twitter with people communicating this in different ways. Like James was saying the other day, get ready for end of October. Meanwhile, Feroz had a very popular thread going on 1st of October. So there will be people out there that have the expectation end of October, or more, I think, more in line with what we've been communicating at the same time as version 7 goes out. So there is ambiguity out there already, and if we say, okay, no, it is 1st of October, then there could be some people that are caught by surprise by that. But having said that, it's been over 2 years. People really should have had a chance to do something about it if they're going to migrate anyway.
About 2 years. What's another 30 days?
That's what I figure. I certainly don't. I'm not a fan of going up till the end of the year. We originally said October for 0.10 and April for 0.12, but we pulled April back, 0.12 back because of the OpenSSL stuff. So I'm not so keen on pushing it forward. And I think we've been pretty. Sorry. No, go ahead, Miles.
I was going to say, like, didn't we originally pick the 1st of October, the beginning of October, because that's when LTS was going to be cut, but then LTS got pushed to the end of the month to allow for V8 5.4?
Well, we've never had a policy that says beginning of October for LTS. It's always just been in October, whenever we line up. And because we're so keen to get 5.4 in, that means end of October. And it happened the same last time. We pushed to the end of the month. I just think that's going to happen anyway as we try and make all the stars line up.
Yeah, the official LTS messaging that's kind of going on, I think, or at least like our official policy on it, is it gets cut when the next major gets cut. And that's kind of usually scheduled for like mid-October and mid-April, sort of ambiguous, so that we have some working room.
Yeah. This is something we just need to clarify, I think, because some of our docs are too confusing here. So it's partly a role for the LTS Working Group, but it's not just an LTS concern because it involves Semver majors as well. So aside from that, which we can probably push it off to the LTS Working Group to resolve ASAP, unless anyone here has strong feelings about it. The other thing that I'm aware of with version 7 is that James is pushing to get a beta release out of this very soon, probably either later this week or early next week. He's just busy with the TC39 stuff. And so we should start seeing a good beta push soon. And then we can start encouraging people to try them out. Aside from that, what are the other things with regard to these versions that we should discuss?
I think V7 is pretty much in Semver major freeze now, unless there's anything that anyone knows that would need to get into it. They'd be specifically Semver major.
I noticed there's a bunch of Semver majors on master that are not in V7. I wasn't part of that discussion, but does anyone know why that's out of sync, or is it just that somebody hasn't updated V7?
So V7 was, I think that PR was made about 2 weeks ago. So it's possible it still needs to get updated, or I'm not sure if James was planning to. I think he was planning to have cut the majors off when it was originally cut, and then we can discuss if any of those really need to make it into that. I think that was sort of the plan.
Okay.
In looking at it, just like taking a look at the list, I only really there are not a ton of Semver major things sitting on master right now. There's the V8 upgrades that I guess need to be an upgrade to 5.4.500.2.7 that needs to get added. Other than that, the only other major I see is like Ben Nordhaus has an FS move strings flag to lib internal that wasn't included, but I think almost all of them are there. I think the big one was the discussion that NPM version 4 is probably coming through the pipeline. Likely in like the week or two before the release. And the question was whether or not that was going to be breaking enough that we didn't want to bring it in without time to test it.
We took a long time with NPM version 3 because it was very unstable for a long time. Are we expecting a different thing with NPM 4?
I think Anna is a really good person to talk to what the major differences are. I do not believe they are going to be as breaking as NPM 3 were.
Yeah, it's pretty small, and I would feel comfortable doing that, landing NPM 4. But yeah, like, well, what Kat told me in person is that they aren't too sad if it doesn't work out either. So basically, we can do what we want.
Sounds like a good discussion for GitHub anyway.
Yeah, there's a discussion on GitHub. It doesn't seem like v4 will be too breaking on the NPM end. Also, anything that was deprecated in there will probably still be deprecated and not like full out removed in v5 as far as it was communicated. So it might be fine to just jump to v5 if that happens. It doesn't sound like there'll be really huge jumps like NPM 3 was again anytime soon. So.
And just to back on what I said about lots of semver majors on master that are not on v7, I'm just noticing now that it's actually all the same pull request. Well, most of it is 8714, which is a v8 upgrade. That's what I'm seeing as lots of semver majors. So that answers that question. Something else to consider here is that, and we've discussed this before, but we don't really have a strict need to synchronize all of these dates into one. We could be flexible if we wanted to. At the moment, we're going with the presumption that that's what we're doing, which is everything happens on the same day. We get v7 out, v6 goes LTS, v010 stops being released, although I guess that goes to the end of October. But we don't actually have to do them on the same day. If we wanted to turn v6 into LTS early, we could do that. Yeah. But at the moment, the presumption is that it's all sort of being the same day.
One thing that I think would be worth bringing up also, a question I had heard is if we have a date that we have in mind for V7 other than just kind of late October, and maybe Ali, if you know what the date for V4 is, that we can maybe decide from that. But it might be a good idea, sooner than later to start broadcasting a date.
So tentatively, October 18th seems like the stable date for 5.4.
How tentative is that?
As tentative as it always is. Yeah, it's not clear until probably the very last moment. But let's put it this way: the chances that V8 will be moving a lot around the time around October 18th are very, very low. And if anything, like in the past year, I haven't seen this date slip by more than 1 or 2 days. I've seen it be early, like by up to a week, but not late by a significant amount. And even if it's late, it's V8 is pretty much locked down at this point. So we have to mitigate the risk of it. If it's delayed, what are we going to do? And whether it's really going to destabilize us. And I think there's a very low risk of that.
With that in mind, do people feel comfortable with October 25th, Tuesday, October 25th, as a tentative date for V7?
That would be beautiful. It's okay. If we said October 25th, Ali and Seth, are we likely to run into any problems there with V8? Is there a risk? Or what's the size of that risk?
So I don't know if Seth can answer, but from my point of view, I think closer to 18th, if there's a sizable risk, I can highlight it if I'm aware of it. But I don't know if there's anything more definitive I can say this time.
It's the last Tuesday in October, so that feels pretty good to me.
Yeah, that does to me too. I like that. I've got people internally asking me as well, pressuring me to get a date, and I keep on waving my hands and saying, well, ish. Okay, so let's do that then. Let's say 25th is our tentative date, and we can start communicating that, but under the proviso that it could change given V8 slippage, which is okay. That's allowed to happen, but we'll communicate that if it does change. Sound like a plan? Any objections? No, that's awesome then. And then we need to start managing V6 as LTS. So that'll need to have a release with its release name and the LTS flag turned on. And whatever else, what other commits need to go in there?
Personally, I would find it maybe not a bad idea. And we have an LTS Working Group meeting on Monday, so we can follow this up there. But I think doing the release sooner may be good, like especially if there's any extra work or anything that comes up around then, we can have that out of the way before V7. So when V7 comes, we can focus on that.
Yeah, we could do it the Tuesday before, the 18th. Okay, well, okay, how about this then? Discussion on this will move to the LTS Working Group. If anyone is interested in this discussion about versioning and getting releases out and everything, then please join the LTS Working Group on Monday. Same time slot.
I'd just like to add on that really quickly, Rod. If you're interested in getting more involved in backporting and being involved in the LTS process, I'm very interested in finding someone to take a lead role on version 6. And that doesn't have to be just to the CTC. If anyone's listening and is interested in that, like obviously there's responsibilities and you have to work up to it, but I'd be really interested in seeing myself not be a single point of failure here.
I'm trying to get somebody on our team volunteered to do that. I just haven't got the yes. So
you're trying to get them volunteered. Nice.
Yeah. Well, I volunteered them. I just need to get them signed up.
And that's something I can help with as well. I mean, I don't get to work on it full time, so I definitely have my day job, but I can do some help with a lot of that, Miles.
Yeah, this is awkward because it's turned out that having an individual be the lead has been really good for version 4. So Miles has done a great job of that, and because it's been such a lot of work, and keeping it stable and keeping his head around everything has been really positive, but it's not sustainable. So we do need to find a model that works in the same way, or with the same quality, but is more sustainable. So this is definitely something for the LTS Working Group to discuss. So maybe, Evan, if you want to join that meeting.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
And anyone else from this meeting, if you want to join, you'd be more than welcome on that one. Just to listen in or contribute. Anything else on this before we move on?
I didn't catch if that was discussed, but like I definitely wouldn't mind having like LTS be either a week before or a week behind to sort of help alleviate scheduling it all at once, like happens with the security releases. That might ease a little bit on everyone who's doing those releases. Yeah, so long as no one has objections to that.
We just discussed that it could be the week before, but we'll bring it up on Monday, and I think you'll be there probably on that meeting.
Yeah, I'll be on that meeting.
Okay, well, the train rolls forward. All good. Any other business to discuss before we move on to a QA time?
So Johan Bergstrom technically had this like as a question for the Q&A, but it's not really a question. I think Trap might want to take it away.
Yeah, this is the supported platforms thing that we talked about a few weeks ago. And Rod, I'm sure you can fill in the details on this, but the Build Work Group has come up with a proposal that I imagine the CTC is supposed to review and probably endorse in some fashion. So the link is in the chat in the sidebar. It's also in the minutes, and we should probably make this a CTC agenda item for next week.
We just need the build working group to sign off on it. I think the reason it's being raised here is simply if you have opinions about this stuff, in fact, even if you don't, just cast your eye over this. Raise anything now that might be a discussion item, so that when it gets to back to the CTC for agreement, we don't have a long back and forth process. So now is the time for open discussion. Well, more open-ended discussion, just so that we can have a more streamlined process when it gets to the CTC. There can still be objections at the CTC level. That's fine. It's just that now is a really good time for input.
So it's not ready to. So the build work group still needs to hash this out a little bit more. Is that what you're saying, Rod?
Yeah, sorry, that's what I'm saying. The build working group still needs to sign off on this collectively and say this is our recommendation to the CTC. Now it's yours to agree or change. So, yeah, it's still discussion phase for build working group, but it's close to final. One of the potentially more contentious items here is the tiers support. So we had a lot of back and forth on these tiers, tier 1, 2, and we changed the third to experimental. There's potentially some politics involved in this as well. So who gets to be tier 1? How do I get to be tier 1? Kind of thing. Particularly, we've got vendors, OS vendors here at the table as well. So that's something to look at now and start considering. And it's not just operating systems that get lumped in, it's also versions. So as you'll see in there, we've relegated older versions of Mac OS back into experimental because basically we have no CI coverage for them at the moment. But we're going to use the tiered approach to talk about quality and levels of support. Okay, so that's a good one to go over to GitHub to. So Q&A. If you're listening to this on the stream and you have questions for the CTC, then please ask them either on the YouTube comments or in IRC in one of the channels where you can find a CTC member, or in the issue for this meeting. Please speak up, and we'll give a couple of minutes to let this stream catch up.
Hey Rod, just before we go fully into this, there was one more thing I wanted to bring up, if that's not going to be a problem.
Go for it.
Some of you may have seen the emails from Tracy in the education group that Node.js is going to be working with the Outreachy project, offering mentorship to individuals from underrepresented groups and training them and getting them involved in the project and hopefully onboarding some new collaborators. What we do need are projects for those individuals to work on. I know that there's, it's kind of hard to think, if they're not starting for 3 months, parts of the system that are going to still need eyes on it or that aren't going to be touched between now and then. But if you can think of good project ideas or good spaces of the code base to mentor individuals on, I myself am volunteering as one of the mentors, and I would love to hear some of your suggestions that people can work on. And I see no reason why we can't all be collaborating and mentoring, even if you're not an official mentor. So if you have any ideas for projects or things that can be worked on, please let myself or Tracy know. And
is there a GitHub thread where we can discuss these things?
Tracy, is there a GitHub thread?
I'll just create a new one because I don't want the reaching out for mentors to be the issue where people are discussing the good projects. So I'll open that right now.
Okay, do that on the CT.
On the CTC, yeah.
CTC repo. I don't know if it needs to be locked unless it starts to get overwhelmed, because other people might have good ideas. I do have another question on that though. Are we getting a satisfactory response to call for mentors, Tracy?
Yeah. So I have, I believe I have 5 mentors as primary mentors. So I had a number of people who reached out that would also like to help and be supplemental, and that's we'll definitely be looking for that as well as once we have the applicants in. But right now we do have 5 primary mentors committed. and we have 4 sponsors. So that's really exciting. So that means that we'll be able to accept 4 applicants or 4 mentees. Sorry.
So we could take another sponsor and get another.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. And if you want to be a supplemental, is it worth commenting on that now, or is that just going to come later?
We have, I believe that outreachy thread for mentors is still open, but I may have, that's in the education repo. So that I don't think I closed the mentor outreach for that, but so yeah, let me pull that link up as well.
Also, Rod, I don't know, and Tracy, correct me if I'm wrong, on the supplemental mentorship, I have a feeling like it's going to be an organic thing just based on like where people have expertise and where they can help out, and not necessarily like an official list of supplementals.
Okay. The thing was that I was keen to get involved here, but the time commitment is way over what I could deal with. So, and I imagine there's other people here that are in the same boat that would like to jump in, but just cannot afford that much time.
All right, so the link is in the chat for people who would like to reach out to supplemental mentors as well. And then what's the best place to share the issue for potential projects suggestions?
I would think the CTC repo, but I guess
sorry.
it could go.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to create that. I just didn't know if there's somewhere I should share the link to it.
Oh, right. You can.
We'll all get notified.
Yeah, just notify ping the collaborators actually. Node.js / collaborators.
Okay, will do.
Okay, so do we have any other Q&A items coming up from any of the channels?
There's nothing on YouTube. There are 4 viewers currently, and there does not appear to be anything else in IRC.
Okay. And there's nothing on GitHub. Okay, so let's wrap it up then. Any other business before we finally drop? Nope. Okay, so CTC meeting is next week, next Wednesday US time. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Yeah, CTC meeting next week as usual. TSC meeting is next week, the day after. Build working group. It's apparently next. It's in 2 weeks. Diagnostics has got next week. LTS is, as we said, next Monday US time, and the others are uncertain. So they're the upcoming meetings, and that's it for the public section of our meeting. Thanks everyone for joining us on the live stream, and thank you everyone for participating in this meeting and observing. Bye for now.